Well, honestly, our first date was kind of weird. And so my mom called me that next day and she said, "So, how was your date with that new boy?" And I said, "Well, it was okay, but nobody I'd ever get serious with."
Yeah, I live with that.
But then he was really sweet. And like one time in our early dating, we had this argument at his house. And my usual was to, if I had conflict, I usually just walked away. Well, he grabbed me by the seat of the pants and made me sit down. And it kind of surprised me, but he said, "We're talking about this." And he was the first person that ever did that. And so it was like, aw, he cared enough to talk it out. So that's kind of how we got started.
Pretty much. Competition.
What kind of competition?
Somebody else wanted to ask her out in fraternity.
Gee, should I be flattered or what?
Well, sometimes well, we could go back and say, she was just cute and she was nice and I'd already made plans and somebody else said they were making plans and I thought, no, I'll make mine first.
But anyway, so I didn't realize how much I liked him. So I went home and I'm cleaning the house furiously because I was getting out my pent up energy. And then
Which didn't happen at Marsh Street very often.
I figured that was the name of our street. Just happened to be kind of like my name. So anyways, after that, we just started dating.
A lot of praying, a lot of trying to talk through things, a lot of, waiting for the right time to say things, communication, a lot of praying, a lot of counseling.
Well, really, we were blessed to be in this church pretty early. Yeah. And so I really did fill out a lot of prayer cards. And the encouragement of Pastor Ron and Joy and other amazing friends. The turning point for us in our struggles was when I was involved in a ministry. And Ron was not doing other things yet. And so, but he just had an attitude every time I went and did this ministry. And I was so frustrated. And so it was another time I went to talk to Pastor Ron. And Pastor Ron took me to the book of Numbers. And he said, "Did you ask Ron's permission?" And I said, "Well, I kind of said, 'Hey, Ron, I'm going to do this ministry. Do you care?' Well, what's he going to do at that point?" So anyways, Pastor Ron said, he showed me how as a woman I need to ask my husband permission. So I left that time and I went home and I wrestled with God and I prayed about my attitude, and then I asked Ron, I said, "Do you want me to quit that ministry? Because I know I didn't ask you really." And he told me yes. Well, that caused me to wrestle with God more. But through that, I really felt like God showed me that, do you want your way or do you want my way? My way leads to blessing. Your way, no. So a few months later, there was another ministry opportunity opened, and I asked Ron that time, really thinking he's going to tell me no again, so how am I going to have a good attitude? But he told me yes. And it really was a line in the sand for me, and I hope it showed Ron that I was serious about our wanting to do the right things.
Getting along.
Get along and do it God's way.
You get to respect and understand each other. You learn the little idiosyncrasies of each other, and you learn what's important. And I think through the biblical teachings and through just basic concern for each other, I think it just, you start to realize that there's times in your life, one of our friends told us this, and it's kind of been our motto since then, but when the love goes away, the commitment has to kick in. The love will come back if you give it time, you give it a chance and you work through it. But it's a commitment. It's not just what society teaches us today, that love is a flash in a pan and it's here today and gone tomorrow. That's lust. But real long-term relationships and getting along and making it last and going through the decades and centuries or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you've got to put in the commitment. It's a work in progress. Even at 39 years, it's a work in progress.
Plus, I think it becomes easier.
It does.
And then you have those little fun memories, or the times you did silly things, or even the times you made each other so mad, but now it's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah.
But even like, well, I think about, how even in God's word, like you think you know a truth, and then years later he'll bring you to that same truth, but now he's teaching you a deeper level. It's kind of like our arguments, early on, boy, you had to really dig to find some things. And now it's like, okay, we still have to dig because, you still have issues. There's still days we disagree, but it doesn't take as long. Or now, much more quickly, we will say, I'm so sorry, I blew that. Or he'll say, I'm sorry, I was thinking about this, and then you came in. So it's like we talk about those things more. We have pet names for each other. We do silly stuff. Now this one, I think you have to promise me this will get cut.
Okay.
But we do silly things like our bathroom in our master bedroom butts up to the main bathroom. So lots of times we find ourselves each in one of the other bathrooms. And so we'll knock out tunes on the wall and the other answers. So one time we were in the bathroom with our grandson. One of us was, and the other was in the other bathroom. And so we said, Brady, you knock, and then Dude's gonna knock. He calls him Grandpa Dude. Dude's gonna knock back. And so he started, and then Ron, knocked back. So then he went home. And his mom was yelling at him, Brady, why are you knocking on those walls? Well, Grammy and Dude do. So you just do ridiculous things that honestly, if people saw that, they'd think, oh. So that's how they entertain themselves. But honestly, that's part of that. That's like your payoff for digging deep all those years and the tears and the times when I wished I had Joy in my house because she'd just tell him what it is, Joy Hawkins, or Barbie Miasga would just tell him how it was. And you just kind of learn. Me too, they would tell me too. But you had to learn, how do we do this? And how do we do it the way God wants it? Because that always, every single time we do it God's way. Even we'll have a discussion and we may not even come to an answer with it, and then there will be the sermon about that very thing. And we look at each other like, whoa.
Scary.
Now we might say, Kurt was at our house. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's looking at me.
We were talking about this just the other day. Sometimes like when the kids were young, we always tried to go for a weekend away at least once a year, just so that we remembered who we were, not as parents, but just who we were. So we started, and even on Saturday mornings before their basketball or that kind of thing, we'd go for a cup of coffee. We'll sit on the deck now and not say anything. This morning, he came and he brought me a cup of coffee while I was still doing my devotions in bed.
Only because I had to go to work. Yeah.
Those are precious. The kids will call and ask for, what do we think about this or that? And it could be about their marriage. It could be about finances.
Job.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So it's like they trust us that it wasn't easy. But with God's help, we work through this. Mm-hmm. And so I think they trust that we're going to give them an honest answer. And, those are just some of the payoff.
Yeah, the payoff. The payoff is just the fact that the relationship that you wanted isn't in year one. You know, it changes so much. The relationship you think you're getting when you get married is down the road.
I remember at our old church, I would look at Don and Betty Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
And in the real early years, Ron didn't come to church with me, but, and I would look at Don and Betty and I would think, oh, someday I want my marriage to look like that. He honors her and she honors him. And I didn't know how to honor Ron early on. And sometimes I was too mouthy and but I mean, really, I was. And so, but now I feel like we are getting there. I can be frustrated with him, but I know it's hard to believe, dear, but that's where we can then talk about it sooner. Or sometimes I'll share with a friend. You're not going to tell everybody, but you have those couple close people that you talk to. Of course, I always go back to the Word. Sometimes we'll take that long walk and, talk things out. And I guess the payoff is the joy, the peace, the deeper trust, not only with each other, but with God. Yeah. We used to laugh because I'm the optimist, he's the pessimist. Oh. And the stuff that we used to think was like a mistake in our marriage, it was really God's blessing, because I would have been one of those to fly off on every happy cloud.
Oh.
So he kind of helps me to be more balanced, but then he needed hope, especially in his job. So what looked like maybe a mistake ended up being God's blessing. And so the payoff is knowing, okay, we fought through this with the help of our church, the help of our friends, the help of God.
It's not just about you two. It's about your circle. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people and a lot of stuff in that circle that you have to have. You try to do it alone, you'll never make it.
There's probably lots of little things. I already mentioned, like, he'll surprise me with sometimes the DeBrands or the bringing coffee to me in bed, or I'll make him special things. And now that he's back to work for a couple months, I always make sure that all he has to do in the morning is press the coffee button, because I'm not getting up that early to make his coffee. But I will prepare it the night before so he can push the button. But taking time for each other. Yeah. Over the years, we'd get involved in different activities for the kids, even with youth group, or there was Youth for Christ at the time, or, various things. But then we would see that, okay, in this busyness, we're losing us. Mm-hmm. We're losing family. And if we don't slow down, our kids are going to need somebody to help them through. So it's always kind of making a check of, okay, where are we? And our church has always been good about that. We've gone to retreats over the years. Mm-hmm. We've taken classes. Those are those moments where you just need to stop and cut the busyness, really listen to each other.
Put the top down and drive.
Yeah. He bought a little sports car many years ago, because it was way before we retired, and it was used at the time, so it's not like it cost us a lot or anything, but sometimes we just put that top down and go.
You just let the wind take the stress right away, and you laugh and you smell and you...
Yeah, we go hiking. We love to be out in the nature. It seems like we just really connect that way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes on those busy times, he would make a surprise reservation at a place like Pokagon. And God always seemed to have an opening for us.
Yeah, but we'd make them to the last minute, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then we would just go spend a couple days there. So, because we found that after the kids left, while those empty nester years were awesome, at first we were still working. So we didn't have the reason to come back home because the kids weren't there. Well, then we found ourselves working way too much.
Oh, yeah.
So that also kind of would start to divide for a while. So we had to even stop on that. Like, whoa, wait a minute. We're putting a limit on this work stuff.
Yeah, we both moved into positions that were multi-person positions with one person in them. and we worked and we worked, and we were exhausted.
And then you get crappy at each other.
Yep, we were exhausted a lot.
Laugh.
Communicate.
Yes, that was huge.
Communicate. Listen. I mean, communicate is not just talking, it's listening. And listen. Hear what's being said, not just, that's the word I want to use, not just hear.
Well, even
but
like-
actually really, really listen, not just hear the words, but really listen.
Like sometimes I can tell on Ron, like if I ask him if is everything okay, he'll say, yep, I'm good. But I'll see his lips purse. It's like, okay, it's not good. So really, you have to really look at each other and know those signs. Like Ron knows if I say, I'm fine.
She ain't-
Oh, I'm not really fine.
She's not.
So that I think that's part of what you meant by
Yeah.
really listen.
Yeah, you
What
gotta
are they
learn. You gotta hear,
saying?
not just hear the words. You gotta listen. You gotta feel the words.
Yes. And then just, he has these
And
little...
don't expect people to understand. There was a book many years ago. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or whatever it was. I never read the book, but the theory behind it is so true. We're so different, and just because you don't know what I'm thinking. I mean, you say something and you think you know what someone's thinking, and when you start filling in those holes, that's not good.
Yeah, like I didn't get I remember the first time we bought him a new suit when we were married, and he didn't want to come home and try it on. It was like, he goes, well, I'll wear it sometime. Well, I know, but try it on now. Hi.
Yeah, come on in.
Sorry, guys.
Well, we've got just a couple more
I
questions.
should have looked in, I just assumed I was the only one doing
Oh,
it.
sorry. I'm booked up for the whole night, so
Alright,
there's
sweet.
2 people coming in after you.
But he did not, that's probably not a guy thing, except maybe for our son.
Our son is different.
But so that kind of annoyed me, but it's like I had to learn that he's not one of my girlfriends. So just trying to figure that out, that it wasn't that he was being bad or annoying.
I just
Well,
tried it
maybe a
on when I
little
got
annoying.
it. Well, I won't try it on again. I'm not going anywhere.
So you
See,
know what?
it's
It's just
up
it's really listening though to those kinds of things, and touching each
Don't
other,
try
hugging
to
each
make
other.
somebody what they're not. We are what you are. She's an optimist. I'm not. Okay, I'm a pessimist. I'm not even not an optimist.
But you're getting better.
No.
I mean, honestly, and this part will probably make me cry just because there were so many times I thought we were going there. Because when it's hard, when you're digging in, it's not fun. But it's so worth it. So to humble yourself, tell somebody how you're feeling, pray. Never quit praying. If your spouse won't pray with you, then you pray anyways and you pray more. And when you're sick of praying, you call that friend and you say, I can't do this anymore. And or fill out that prayer card or whatever. But you do it because it is worth it.
Yep. Winners never quit. You just got to keep fighting. You know, I've been a Cub fan since 1960. Come on. You just got to keep fighting.
A friend also told me one time, she said, Marcia, do you think Ron's a mind reader? And I said, but the things he's missing are so painfully obvious. She said, Marcia, they're painfully obvious to you. They are not to him. So when we started talking about some of those things, he really didn't know my expectation. So again, you said the word many times, communicate. You have to talk. You have to decide to put down the hurt. You have to decide that
Yeah.
I'm going to stay on my knees until I see breakthrough.
It's an effort. It's a commitment. Commitment is,
Some days it doesn't feel good.
yeah, commitments are tough. And we lose that in today's society because its commitment is long-term, and we're such a short-term society. We're so instant gratification that we don't look beyond and see what happens in year 5 or year 10 or year 38 or whatever. You don't see a lot of marriages. I mean, years ago you saw a lot of 45s and 50s, and you just don't see very many of those anymore because people quit and they don't understand the commitment. Today's generation needs to really understand commitment is a long-term word.
And I would have missed out on this amazing man. And I don't say that just flippantly because, you know, I have seen over the years how he worked hard doing overtime and extra duty so that we could have things, and how he always had time for the kids. And those are some of those hardest years. But if you stop then, wow, you don't get this now. Which this still isn't perfect.
Far, but
But
better.
it's amazing, it's blessed, it's fun.